Well, folks, more state polling is out, and it shows, once again, that the race is unbelievably close, which means the debate next week is going to be pretty much everything. If Donald Trump shows up and mops the floor with Kamala Harris, or if Kamala Harris shows up and shockingly outperforms, that could be the deciding factor in this election. We'll get to what Trump needs to do and what he needs to avoid in the debate momentarily. First, in 1 week, Matt Walsh's Am I Racist hits theaters nationwide. It's not just comedy. It's a fact-based takedown of the left's DEI dogma. Theaters are selling out fast with new venues added every single day. Get your tickets right now at miracist.com. Okay, so the new polling is in. According to the brand new YouGov poll that is out this week, it shows Kamala Harris and Donald Trump deadlocked in Pennsylvania. She's up by 1, 46-45, but that's within the margin of error. Nevada, it shows her up by 3, 49-46. That is a 3-point swing, obviously, but that's also within the margin of error. The same thing is true in Wisconsin, where she has a 3-point lead. In Michigan, she has a more durable 5-point lead, according to that brand new YouGov poll. But the bottom line remains, consistently, all of these states are effectively tied. All of the major battleground states right now are effectively tied, which is why Nate Silver continues to suggest in his modeling that Donald Trump is actually in the lead, because the polls tend to undersample Trump supporters at least a little bit, because he has a lot of low propensity voters who show up just for Donald Trump, makes the electorate really, really hard to model. Plus, there are a bunch of systemic factors that don't cut exactly in Kamala Harris's favor. The more people see of Kamala Harris, the less they like her, at least in unscripted settings, which is why she has only done scripted settings for this entire election cycle. Kamala Harris, for her part, she is going to spend pretty much the next 5-6 days actually just prepping for the debate, according to the Washington Post. While Donald Trump is out campaigning, Harris is headed to Pittsburgh, where aides say she will spend several days preparing for Tuesday's presidential debate with Donald Trump. Now, honestly, that's kind of amazing. Why does she require many days to prep for a debate with Donald Trump? It's not as though Donald Trump is new to the political scene. What are her lines of attack going to be? The answer here is that she is going to have to memorize a lot, because she doesn't have the ability to stick and move. She has no capacity to actually adjust on her feet to the things happening around her. And so she's going to have to memorize a lot. And they're probably planning for that. That is why, despite all the protestations about how they're mad that the microphones will be closed, because they were hoping for some sort of Donald Trump silly statement in the middle of one of her statements so she can claim she's being interrupted and victimized and all of the rest. You could see a world where it actually benefits her, that Donald Trump can't actually interject anything because, if she's got a bunch of questions memorized, then she can sort of spit them out the way that you would in rote fashion on a 7th grade social studies exam. In any case, let's get into what Donald Trump has to do in the debate. So again, this debate is pretty much everything, because here's the thing. Donald Trump's numbers right now, pretty much stagnant. They're not really going anywhere. But Kamala Harris's numbers have been all over the place, historically speaking. If you go back to before she was the candidate, she was losing to Trump pretty significantly in the polls. Then they swapped out the dead president for an alive vice president, and suddenly she had new levels of enthusiasm. That all came right back into play. So much enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. Right? That was the story. And with that came a certain level of support. The joy and the vibes, however, seem to be waning, because the polls really have not moved since. The polls have been really stagnant for several weeks now. The DNC did not move them. Not only that, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, they've been out doing interviews like pretty much every day. Frank Luntz makes the point that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have done legitimately dozens of interviews in the same time frame that Harris Walz has done one. The Trump-Vance ticket, according to Luntz, has done a combined 38 interviews since August 6th. Harris Walz has done one, and it was 16 minutes of her talking. Luntz says this could end up being like Trump holding 106 campaign rallies while Hillary Clinton held 71 in the final 70 days of the 2016 race. He says the campaign rally trend from 2016 is resembling the current media interview trend in 2024. She continues to avoid all adversarial situations because she is really bad at this, which means, again, Trump has to seize on the situation. There probably is only one debate. I know there's been talk about a second debate. I don't think so. If Kamala Harris outperforms, she just won't give it to Trump. She'll say no, and then she'll hope to coast all the way into the White House on the basis of that one debate. And if Trump clocks her, I'm not sure why he would give her a second debate. If he clocks her, and if she's really starting to drop in the polls, then he'll just let that sit. He'll say, I did 2 presidential debates, 2 for 2, knocked out 2 candidates, done. Folks, when Kamala Harris says there's going to be a second debate, I think she is fibbing. But it turns out There are a lot of people who are fibbing, including your cell phone company. So Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can charge you a lot of money. But you actually don't have to do that. You could be charged half that amount of money if you get the actual amount of data you need with Pure Talk. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you can choose how much data you actually want, and you can save. Listen to this. For just $35 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data, plus mobile hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network. You know what you can do with that much data? You can browse the internet for 500 hours. You can stream 3,000 songs. You can watch 30 hours of video. That's if you're not on Wi-Fi. Here's the best part. When you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk on a qualifying plan, you'll get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider, which means access to the full library of DW Plus movies, series, and documentaries, including Lady Ballers, What is a Woman, Mr. Burcham, Run, Hide, Fight, Plus, uncensored ad-free daily shows, 1 year free of our kids platform, Bentkey, and your very own free Leftist Tears Tumblr. The only way you can get that special offer is by going to puretalk.com/Shapiro, or you can call and mention my name. Stop overpaying for your cell phone plan. Go to puretalk.com/Shapiro today, switch to a qualifying plan, get 1 year free of Daily Wire Plus Insider. So I think this will be the one and only debate. All the talk about a future debate, a possible future debate, I think that's all nonsense. I'd be shocked if there is a second debate. So what does Trump actually have to do? Well, he has to pursue 9 themes, and then there are 3 things he can't do. He doesn't have to hit all 9, but these are the themes he should pursue. So theme number 1, and this stems directly from her tendency to hide from everything. Her tendency to hide from legitimately all possibility of adversarial questions. Theme number 1 is that she is hiding, and he's now going to hold her accountable. So right at the very outset, as soon as he gets control of the mic, Trump should start by thanking her for showing up. You should say, I'm so glad that you showed up because, frankly, no one's been able to ask you a question. No one's been asking you. You've been running away from every question. You pretended that you had earphones in your ears to avoid questions from the media. In one interview, you don't want to answer questions because you don't understand your own policies. You don't agree with your own policies. You've changed your policies over and over. Right, that's what, don't worry, I won't do the annoying Trump impersonation this whole time. But that is what he should say. He should say, thank you for showing up, because it's great to be able to see someone ask you a question. I know you're trying to run on vibes, but it turns out that being president of the United States should be about a little bit more than vibes. Theme number 2 is that she is the incumbent and she owns this. So Kamala Harris during this debate is going to make a lot of promises. She's going to talk about how she's going to lower inflation. She's going to fight for the middle class. She's going to shut down that border. And what he should say over and over is, so why didn't you do it? Every time they flash back to him, he should say, Kamala, I hear you're making a lot of promises. I noticed that you're the vice president of the United States today. I am not the incumbent. You are the incumbent. You own the inflation. You own the Afghanistan decision that left 19 million women in abject slavery, locking them in the basement, getting tens of thousands of our allies killed, presumably, leaving billions of dollars in military equipment over there, and getting 13 American service people killed. You are the last person in the room on that one. You're the incumbent. You own it. So when you say you're going to change things, why should we trust you? We know what a Kamala Harris administration looks like because we're in the middle of one, and it sucks. If she says, I'm going to do X, you should immediately say, so why didn't you do it? So again, theme 1, so glad you could show up to actually answer hard questions. We'll see if you do. And theme 2 is, you're the incumbent and you own it. So now it's time for you to answer for it. Theme 3, she is wildly dishonest. It's not just that she's vague. We'll get to that in a minute. It's that she is totally and completely dishonest. And here he should hammer her on Joe Biden's health. It turns out that 80% of Americans believe that we were lied to about Joe Biden's health, and that people who continue to maintain that Joe Biden is totally with it, well, solid, that 80% of Americans believe those people are lying to them. He should hammer her on this. In that ridiculous interview with Dana Bash over on CNN, she literally said that Joe Biden is with it, he's strong, he's virile, he's a man in full. And so Donald Trump should say, you keep saying that he's healthy and that he's with it. That raises a couple of questions. One, why are you lying? Everybody knows that you are lying and that that's not true. But that also raises another question, which is, why are you here? Why are you here? If he's so with it, if he's so well, if you weren't lying before that he could serve a second term, why are you here? What gives you the ability to be the nominee, swapping out your old nominee? You say that he's totally well. So are you lying? Like, what's the story? Is he well? Is he with it? Or is he senile? And are you lying to the American people? Right? The question of honesty is a really big one for Kamala Harris because she is, in fact, a liar. She lies an awful lot. He should point out that she is doing ads in which she walks next to his border wall and pretends that she's hard on border security because she's lying. She can't even keep her accent straight. When she's in Detroit, she starts dropping into a Southern accent. And the minute she's in Pittsburgh, she suddenly sounds like she's a business school student at Hofstra. It's amazing. So that's theme 3. She is dishonest. Theme 4, totally incoherent. So at some point during this debate, you know she's going to drop a word salad. She's going to start waving the arms around, making the weird hand motions. You know, the importance of the environment is that the environment, which houses us all on this planet, we like to call the Earth, so important. And when she finishes her answer, he should say the exact same thing to her that he said to Joe Biden. He should say, frankly, I don't know what she said, and I don't think she does either. That was nonsensical. I said that about her predecessor in this race, Joe Biden, because he legitimately didn't know what he was saying at any given time because of his mental problems, of his sad decline. But you don't know what you're talking about because you legitimately don't know what you're talking about. You can't hold firm on a single policy. You can't explicate any of your policy positions without randomly exploring the wilds of empty, vague rhetoric. You can spit out bumper stickers and mix that in with nonsense. It doesn't make it a coherent policy. And you are incoherent. It's incoherent. The American people deserve a president who actually, knows his own policies. Theme number 5, she's radical. And now this is perfectly obvious. Kamala Harris is the most radical presidential candidate in modern American history, which is to say all of American history. Because, if you're a radical candidate, then your radicalism has likely flowered in the United States in the last half century or so. She is easily the most radical candidate in American history. He should say, you told the truth about your positions in 2019, 2020 when you ran for president that time. You told the truth about them. You say now that you don't believe any of the things you believed in 2019, 2020. So I want to know why you switched. What did you learn? Were you super wrong? Then you say that you have the same exact values that you held in 2019, 2020. So why are you switching all of your actual policies? Could it be that you're not switching your policies and you are lying and you are just as radical as you ever were? And now you're lying to get past Pennsylvania, for example. You wanted to ban fracking in 2019, 2020. That is radical. And now you say you don't want to ban fracking. Based on what? Based on what? Is fracking now safe and wonderful according to you? I don't believe you. You said in 2019, 2020 that by 2035, you actually co-sponsored a bill saying that by 2035, there should not be gas-powered engines in the United States sold on the market. Now you say that you don't want an electric vehicle mandate. But you were also asked just last week by Axios whether you would veto such a bill, and you had no answer. So I think you're lying. Do you want to decriminalize border crossings? Back in 2019, 2020, you said that you did want to decriminalize border crossings. When you were Attorney General of the state of California, you sued to try to prevent the federal government from cracking down on sanctuary cities. So where are you on that? Should we decriminalize border crossings? Now you say you're tough on the border. And if you say that you've shifted, I want to know why. You said that you wanted to propose a tax on unrealized capital gains. Even your gigantic billionaire supporter, Marc Cuban, says that will destroy the stock market. So what's the story? Kamala Harris, she is indeed a radical. And I got to tell you, it is tiring covering all of her lives, which is why I have to stay healthy. I mean, look, I'm on the road right now. And I was literally campaigning this week for Senate candidates in Nevada. I got a lot going on. So I'm trying to stay healthy. That means you got to get your sleep, got to exercise. When you're on the road, that's hard. One thing I can do is my balance of nature. It fits right into my day-to-day. Imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and veggies every day. That sounds miserable. It sounds time-consuming. With balance of nature fruits and veggies, however, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and veggies daily. Balance of nature takes fruits and veggies, they freeze-dry them, they turn them into a powder, and then they put them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and your body knows what to do with them. It's kosher, which means I can just put it right in that protein smoothie in the morning. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Shapiro for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Shapiro. Again, it's going to be hard to cram down all those fruits and veggies. Not the easiest thing in the world. Instead, why not try out balanceofnature.com? Use promo code Shapiro. Get 35% off your first order as a preferred customer and a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Shapiro. You were pro-race reparations in the United States in 2019, 2020. Did something magically change? Did something change, or are you just that radical? You're pro-abortion until birth. You're pro-the children. You're the most radical candidate in American history. Okay, theme 6, she is absolutely weak. Super duper weak. So you want to pretend that you are hardcore on the border. You are not. You have presided over the single greatest invasion via the southern border in the history of our nation in terms of illegal immigration. Bar none, not close. You say that, when you were AG in California, you cracked down hard on crime. Really, did you? Because there was actually a massive crime lab failure that led to the release of 1,000 criminals onto the streets because you were so soft on crime. You were a San Francisco prosecutor, and now you want to be a San Francisco president. You say you're going to be tough on terrorism. You're going to have a lethal military. You haven't even unleashed that lethal military on the Houthis, a ragtag bunch of bandits who have held up all shipping in the Red Sea. What is it you would say you do around here if you're so tough? If you're so rough on the world stage, if people actually fear you, why does no one fear you? Why are all of our enemies on the move? Russia invaded Ukraine while you were vice president. Iran has activated from 7 different fronts attacks on Israel while you're the vice president. China is casting its eyes at Taiwan while you are vice president. They don't think you're tough. Xi doesn't think you're tough. Putin doesn't think you're tough. The Iranians don't think you're tough. They think you're a Marc. Theme number 7, you are a terrible manager. You want to manage the economy of the United States. You've never run a popsicle stand. Your campaign was so bad in 2020 that there were vast articles about how terrible that campaign was. You had to drop out before you even got to your own home state. The amazing thing about you, Kamala, is that you somehow became the presidential nominee for a major American party by never winning a single primary vote in your entire life. That's unprecedented. It's insane. You've never run a good campaign. You nearly lost your attorney general's race in the far left state of California to a Republican. That's how incompetent a campaigner you are. You only won your Senate race in California because you were running against another Democrat, Loretta Sanchez. You have a 93% turnover rate in the office of the vice presidency where you do nothing all day. Now you want to manage America? You couldn't even manage a campaign to win a nomination. Theme 8, you're not just radical, you are a threat to democracy. You have pledged to completely revise the bargain of the Constitution between the people and their government. You have pledged that if you become president, and if you have a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House, you will immediately kill the filibuster. You will then use a bare Senate majority in order to ram through a wide variety of radical proposals, ranging from stacking the Supreme Court to changing voting rules to mandate ballot harvesting across the nation. That is the practice where you have party apparatchiks who go around and pick up ballots from their favored constituencies. It's really corrupt. To adding states to the United States Senate, to permanently stack the United States Senate in favor of Democrats. The administration under which you serve has used more executive orders than any administration in modern history. That administration has tried to use the Occupational Safety and Health Administration in order to cram down a vax mandate on 80 million Americans. You are a threat to democracy. You want to claim I'm a threat to democracy because there was a riot on January 6th? How about the fact that you presided as a vice presidential candidate over some of the worst riots in American history? And I say presided over because you tried to bail out the rioters in the Black Lives Matter riots. And finally, theme number 9, you're just not up to the job. You failed at every single job Joe Biden ever gave you. He put you in charge of the space program, and now we can't even have a rocket get up to the International Space Station to get down our astronauts. Joe Biden put you in charge of the border in the Northern Triangle, and illegal immigration skyrocketed. Joe Biden made you part of the Ukraine team, and Ukraine was promptly invaded. You were totally sidelined in the White House, according to multiple reports, because you were so incompetent. In fact, you were an afterthought. The only reason we're even talking about you right now is because your boss went totally senile, and then you were rammed into the nomination by Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. There's literally no issue on which you have been given control that you have not botched beyond all belief. You're not up to the job. Okay, so those are the 9 themes that Trump has to hit. Doesn't have to hit all of them, but he has to hit a lot of them. Again, just to repeat quickly, 1, she's hiding and he's going to hold her accountable. 2, she is the incumbent and she owns all of this. 3, she is dishonest. She's a liar. Theme 4, she's incoherent. Theme 5, she is radical. Theme 6, she is weak. Theme 7, she's an awful manager. Theme 8, she's a threat to democracy. And Theme 9, she's not up to the job. Again, should be a pretty target-rich environment for President Trump. She has been able to shift this race to pretend she's not the incumbent. Somehow she is running against Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's a lie, and everybody knows it. Now, this brings us to the stuff that Trump cannot do. The stuff that Trump cannot do. Number one, he cannot lose his cool. The Kamala Harris campaign is betting on him losing his cool. This is the real reason why they were upset about the lack of open mics during the actual debate. They were really pushing hard for the open mics. They were hoping to prompt him into a moment where he stepped on her toes, and then she could claim that she was a victim. She could go crying to the audience. Here's Ian Sams, who's the Harris-Walz senior advisor on MSNBC, just lamenting and whining and about the fact that there won't be open mics.
I think you mentioned the fact that the Trump campaign insisted on having the microphones muted in the debate on Tuesday night. I think that you can see that that's clearly a concentrated effort by President Trump to create a parameter to let him be more disciplined and more careful in his approach. I think people might be underestimating his ability in the debate, given the structure and format of those muted microphones. You know, he lies so much that it's hard to fact check him in real time, whether you're a moderator or a candidate running against him. And so I think his handlers worked really hard to make sure that those mics stay muted to put him in a better position to be successful.
Okay, well, again, the reason that they are doing this, the reason they're pushing is because what they are desperately hoping for is for Trump to overstep his boundaries, lose his temper, and then she can do the, you see, he's too volatile. Like that, that's what they're looking for. I'm speaking. They're waiting for that moment. So Trump has to make sure he does not lose his cool. And by the way, you do too when it comes to, like back taxes or unfiled returns. Easy to lose your mind if you're hit with something by the IRS, but you can get help with Tax Network USA. They are your best offense. With over 14 years of experience, the experts at Tax Network USA have saved clients millions of dollars in back taxes. Regardless of the size of your tax issue, their expertise will work to your advantage. Tax Network USA offers 3 key services: protection, compliance, and settlement. Upon signing up, Tax Network USA will immediately contact the IRS to secure a protection order, ensuring that aggressive collection activities like garnishments, levies, or property seizures are halted in their tracks. If you haven't filed in a while, if you need amended returns, or if you're just missing records, Tax Network USA's expert tax preparers will update all your filings to eliminate the risk of IRS enforcement. Then they create a settlement strategy to reduce or eliminate your tax debt. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world. Now that tax season is over, collection season has begun. Tax Network USA can even help with state tax issues. For a complimentary consultation, call today 1-800-958-1000 or visit their website at tnusa.com/Shapiro. That's 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Shapiro today. Do not let the IRS take advantage of you. Get the help you need with Tax Network USA. Second, he cannot make personal insinuations. This one's really hard because, frankly, her life story is filled with personal insinuations. And Trump loves that kind of stuff. And Trump should definitely avoid the Willie Brown of it. He should avoid it mainly because it's not a winning tactic, not because it ain't true. It turns out it is amazing that we have now reached a point in the United States of America where it is considered more controversial to mention the fact that Kamala Harris got her start by having with Willie Brown, one of the most important men in California politics. It's more taboo to say that than it is for her to have done it. That's kind of an amazing thing about the United States in this day and age. Don't mention it. Don't mention it at all. It was all done on skill. It was all done on her skill and her wherewithal and her strength. No problem that she actually, got her start by sleeping with one of the most powerful men in California politics who overtly talks about how much he helped her on her way up. But Trump shouldn't touch it because other people will say it, and because he will be labeled as sexist, and because then it will open him up to all sorts of allegations about his own sex life and that sort of stuff. She wants to play victim. That is her last tactic. Her tactic of last resort is that she is Donald Trump's victim. He should not give that to her. And then finally, the biggest one of all, he should not waste time on personal grievances. Now, this one's very hard for President Trump, as we know. For President Trump, his rallies are really funny and they're fun and there's a lot going on at them. Until he gets to Festivus. There's always a part of the rallies where he just starts to go into the Festivus grievances. Now, he's been doing this a lot less lately. President Trump has been avoiding this. He's been talking about her policy. We'll get to a very good policy speech he gave on economics just yesterday. But he has an unfortunate habit, when prompted, of talking about how the election was stolen and January 6th and the victims of January and all this kind of stuff. Unhelpful. Even if he believes it, totally, totally unhelpful. The same thing is true, for example, if he is asked about his comments regarding Kamala Harris's race. They will certainly, and she will certainly bring up the fact that he suggested that she didn't consider herself black or something. And what he should say is, look, Kamala, what I was talking about is your radical dishonesty when it comes to how you code switch. You go from audience to audience, you change your accent in order to appeal to different audiences, and it's really, really dishonest. But of course you're black. Everyone knows you're black. That is clearly true. You should just say that. That should be the end of it. If he follows rabbit holes, that is what she is hoping for. That would be a very large-scale mistake. So it's a very winnable debate for President Trump. And again, her entire strategy is to just throw him off his game. Her entire strategy is to make him mad. Her entire strategy is to have him demonstrate on the stage why he is unfit. And so that's going to be her saying kind of nasty things, or kind of prodding him. I think if he keeps his cool, he'll be in pretty good shape. But he does have to push her on some issues. The good news is, I think that's precisely what he's going to do. Now, good news is you can watch it with us because that debate is happening Tuesday, September 10th. It's the most consequential debate in modern history. We're doing it backstage. We're going to bring you a live simulcast of the debate and reactions from those trusted voices in conservative media. So join me, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and Jeremy Boring for full coverage and analysis. Watch it live with us over at Daily Wire Plus. It's going to be a hell of a night. Go check that out over at Daily Wire Plus. That is your reminder for next Tuesday night. That's where you're going to want to watch the debate. Okay, meanwhile, President Trump, yesterday, he laid out a pretty extensive economic plan. He gave a good speech. It was at the Economic Club of New York. And again, when Trump is on the issues, he wins. Right now, the polling suggests that in the swing states, he is winning on the economy. He's going to win more on the economy as she continues to lay out her terrible plans for the economy, all of which involve spending oodles of dollars and taxing pretty much everything that moves. She's going to tax everything that moves until it's dead, and then she is going to regulate the remains. That is effectively her plan. President Trump, for his part, he can tout his record. One of the points I've made about this election is that in this election, Donald Trump wants you to remember his tenure in office, and Kamala Harris wants you to forget hers. That's something Trump should probably say in the debate. I'm here to remind you of my record in office, and she is here to make you forget hers. Here he was touting his own record, economically speaking.
Real median household income rose by $7,684. And even after the pandemic, annual incomes were up $6,400. The average American household saw a $197,000 increase in real net worth in 48 months. For the bottom 50% of households, average wealth more than doubled, increasing by 121%. After 12 years of decline, we added nearly 7 million new homeowners. Never happened before. And in 3 years, we created 7 million new jobs, 260% more than projected. From the day I won to the day I left, the S&P 500 increased by 80%.
Again, that's the record. And Kamala Harris will try to compete with that. She'll say that she created a bunch of jobs. Now, Kamala Harris, she's going to lie about pretty much anything. And you know what? Lies sometimes win unless you actually pursue truth, which is why if you're looking for an educational experience that does pursue truth, you should check out Grand Canyon University. It's a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. GCU believes we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with a purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote human flourishing and create a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. By honoring your career calling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. Whether you're pursuing a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 330 academic programs as of December 2023, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. That's gcu.edu. The reality is virtually all the jobs created under Biden-Harris are what would be called rebound jobs, meaning they were jobs that were lost during COVID that just came back to where they were. And then we started growing again, but at a slower rate than under President Trump. And right now, we are having some pretty significant reports of joblessness. The number of available jobs has gone down. And of course, that comes on the heels of 3.5 years of radical inflation. Speaking of which, President Trump, speaking at the Economic Club of New York, he says, we're going to lower everything. We're going to lower the prices. We're going to lower the taxes. We're going to lower the interest rates, all of it.
I am promising low taxes, low regulations, low energy costs, low interest rates, secure borders, low crime and surging incomes for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. My plan will rapidly defeat inflation, quickly bring down prices, and reignite explosive economic growth.
Again, this is all very good stuff. This is all very Trump on teleprompter wins the election. Trump off the teleprompter, we'll have to find out. President Trump also suggested that he is going to go along with Elon Musk's plan for a government efficiency commission to cut spending and cut regulation. Here he was announcing that.
I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now. And Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force. Be interesting. If he has the time, it'll be a good one to do it, but he's agreed to do it.
Again, that's wonderful. That's great. He also says he's going to eliminate regulations even faster than he did in his first term. In his first term, for every regulation that was promulgated, 5.5 were repealed. He is going to now up that rate. He says he's going to do that specifically because of the additional regulations put in place by the Biden-Harris administration.
I will launch a historic campaign to liberate our economy from crippling regulation. In my first term, I pledged to cut 2 old regulations for every 1 new regulation, and we did much better than that, as I've said. Yet over the past 4 years, Kamala has added $6,300 a year in regulatory costs onto the backs of the typical American family. Think of that. To stop this onslaught and lower prices, I'm pledging today that in my second term, we will eliminate a minimum of 10 old regulations for every 1 new regulation.
Again, this is all very good. And he has a proposal. He wants to lower the corporate tax rate for firms producing in the United States. Now, the reality is that if you relieve regulation and you radically lower the corporate tax rates for everyone, not just people producing in the United States, you'll get an explosion of growth, an explosion of innovation and investment. So listen, I'd rather have selective tax reductions than no tax reductions, but I'd rather have general tax reductions than selective tax reductions. Still is an interesting proposal.
My plan calls for expanded R&D tax credits, 100% bonus depreciation, expensing for new manufacturing investments, and a reduction in the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15% solely for companies that make their product in America.
And Trump also went on attack while speaking at the Economic Club of New York. He slammed Kamalanomics here.
Comrade Kamala Harris wants to sacrifice our wealth, kill the economy, and drive jobs overseas to punish businesses more. Businesses will leave. Her tax plan, which includes the promise to end the Trump tax cuts, which again by itself would be a massive tax increase, would increase taxes by over $5 trillion. It would result in the largest small business tax hike in history, massively raising taxes on 25 million small business people and raising small business tax rates to 43% and higher, radically raise the capital gains tax rate, which he wants to do, and they don't even want to give a number.
Well, of course, he is right about that, and he ripped her on her idiotic plan to tax unrealized capital gains.
These policies, especially the tax on unrealized capital gains, would decimate the U.S. economy. Companies and innovation would flee from America to other countries. Venture capital markets would disappear, the stock market would be annihilated, and investors assess the tax liabilities of large shareholders. The seniors and senior pensions would totally go up in smoke. They'd be worthless. These are not the policies designed to create a prosperous America. These are policies to turn the United States into Venezuela on steroids.
Even Marc Cuban, who's one of her biggest boosters, billionaire, he was asked about her tax on unrealized capital gains, and he's like, yeah, that would destroy the stock market. Well, then what are you doing, dude? Like, come on.
To her value proposition is we need to tax everybody fairly. I'm starting from the Biden plan as a starting point, but that's not necessarily her ending
Marc,
point.
let me just say, I appreciate you calling in, telling us what you're hearing on these fronts. That's great. But as you've said yourself, you can't speak for the vice president. These are things they're telling you. Who knows what they're telling other people? My guess is they're telling anybody who's donating to them exactly what they want to hear at this point. What matters is what they say publicly and what they will stick to.
No, absolutely, positively not.
No, they would they would never double talk. Never, ever. They would never double talk. Sure. By the way, I do love that Joe Biden occasionally, he's kind of slipping the knife into Kamala Harris. Like, he's not super happy with this whole situation. So yesterday, Slow Joe was out there on the campaign trail, and he actually admitted full scale that the Inflation Reduction Act was totally misnamed and was a giant Green New Deal boondoggle. That's not very good for Kamala Harris. Here was Joe Biden trying to speak out of his mouth hole yesterday.
My investments, through my investments, the most significant climate change law ever. And by the way, it is a $369 billion bill. It's called we should have named it what it was, but at any rate.
So again, if Trump stays on the issues, he retains the upper hand in this election cycle. He does. Okay, in just 1 second, we'll get to a couple of economic proposals from President Trump that are mirrored by the Democrats. They aren't particularly good. First, in exactly 1 week, the Daily Wire's first ever theatrical release, Am I Racist?, will be hitting theaters across the nation. It's more than a comedy. It's a systematic dismantling of the left's entire DEI apparatus. We have another sneak peek for you. Take a look at Matt Walsh's Am I Racist?
I used to be a white woman, an unsuccessful one, for many decades, and it was a miserable experience. And really, the hatred of yourselves and each other is like the not seeing your power, the being afraid. Like, all you do is talk about each other, talk about yourself. Oh my God, I'm so fat.
That's all they do. I'm telling you, these white women.
But that's it. It's I'm so fat, I'm so stupid, I'm blah blah blah.
Sorry.
Your kids are watching you, and they're watching you talking about each other, raging against the machine or being silent or whatever the hell it is that you're doing or not doing, and they know that you're not doing for them.
That's so important. That is so important what you just said. It's really important. That's all.
We may have to add you to our team.
Oh, I would love to take a seat and join you.
No, you're not allowed to.
Okay.
Definitely not allowed.
Okay. I have my DEI certification that I got.
Okay.
So, not saying I'm an expert, but I'm also not a novice. So, okay.
White people are starved for these conversations.
We are. Yeah. We're so starving.
Yeah.
We are so starving for this.
Anyone else want to say anything?
I'll just say one thing. I'm so glad we can have these conversations, and I'll be done. But I'm just so glad that we could all get together to have these conversations. That's all I wanted to say.
Is he an actor? Are you an actor?
Oh, no.
Can you let us, we're trying to listen and trying to have this conversation.
Okay, we're all acting all the time in our lives. And I think that's part of the problem, That it's like we're all trying to play a part rather than just being real and having these uncomfortable conversations. And that's what I'm always trying to tell people, especially, white women, no offense. But
no, but see, like, you're a white dude. There's power positions and, it's pointing white people pointing fingers at each other is not helpful.
I've been on this journey for so long, and just to see you guys at the table having this conversation has been really enlightening for me. Anyway, I got the DEI certification, and I'm just on the journey. All right, you ladies have a great night.
Decolonize yourself. Do your own white supremacy dismantling, and then you can start to bring in other people.
Can I just say one last thing? Can I just propose a toast? Just raise a glass if you're racist, and that's the thing.
Cheers. Oh, I'm not racist. Let me
to racist. Well, all the rest of it. To racist.
They gonna say you racist. Am I Racist? In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13. Buy tickets now.
It's so good. It really is. It's a great piece of work by Matt. It really is fast. Like, honestly, no one else could do this. That deadpan, Matt is a killer. Theaters are selling out fast and new venues are being added daily to meet the demand. Get your tickets right now at miracist.com. Also, this Sunday, we're releasing a brand new episode of the Sunday Special with Matt Walsh. In this episode, we will discuss the making of his new film, Am I Racist? You'll get to hear the inside scoop on everything that took place behind the scenes and more. Here's a little bit of the trailer.
Let them expose themselves. Let them do the work. I don't have to explain to the audience or explain to the person why they're wrong. Let them expose that, and then we're going to put it on display. Probably a lot of them are sitting kind of nervous right now and thinking about embarrassing things they said and thinking like, God, I hope that didn't make it into the film. I can tell them right now it did. and to Robin DiAngelo in particular, there's one moment that she's thinking, oh my gosh, I hope that's not in there. Oh, it is, Robin. Oh, it is.
Don't miss this incredible episode of the Sunday Special with Matt Walsh. Meanwhile, both parties seem to have become pretty warm on the idea of tariffs, not as a national security tool. Tariffs as a national security tool makes some sense. I mean, if you actually want to quash China's economic growth, then sure, you're going to make the economic sacrifice that American taxpayers will pay more money, but you'll also be harming China's economic growth. That's the idea of tariffs. Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have sort of suggested that tariffs to protect domestic industries are economically good. That, of course, is not particularly true. Both parties are now working together to kill a deal in which Nippon Steel, which is a Japanese company, is attempting to buy the Pittsburgh-based U.S. steel. That doesn't mean, by the way, that steel would stop being produced in the United States. It actually means more efficiencies that are brought to bear as Nippon Steel actually infuses billions of dollars into the transaction to build new factories. If it doesn't happen, U.S. Steel is going to lose an awful lot of jobs. So, again, if you can show me a security rationale for why you're turning down the deal, that's one thing. If this is sort of a union sop, then that is a completely different thing. Meanwhile, Democrats in preparation for Kamala Harris not doing particularly well, they're going harder and harder on disinformation. Remember, this is their go-to excuse when they lose elections. Their go-to excuse is disinformation, misinformation, election interference. Here, for example, is Chris Hayes of MSNBC lamenting X. Why? Well, because X, of course, allows for free speech and dissemination of information that Chris Hayes doesn't particularly like. He says that X is now turning into a pro-Trump disinformation machine.
Elon Musk runs one of the most influential internet platforms, or at least it used to be, formerly known as Twitter. And he has essentially turned that platform into a pro-Trump, pro-authoritarian disinformation machine, where he just posts vile bigotry and disinformation that millions of people see and share. Despite his site's own policy that you may not share synthetic, manipulated, or out-of-context media that may deceive or confuse people, Musk does that basically all day long.
Wow, he put out stuff that Chris Hayes doesn't like. I mean, if you put out information that were meant to, say, deceive people about Donald, let's say Russiagate for like 4 years, if you're MSNBC, does that make you a vile disinformation machine? Is that how that works? Or it only works that way when people are disagreeing with Chris Hayes. Remember, there are consequences to this sort of stuff. If given the presidency, Kamala Harris undoubtedly would actually bring the mechanisms of government to bear on social media. In fact, in 2019, she did just that. Here she was vowing to use the DOJ to go after social media.
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
That seems like a fascistic threat to free speech, doesn't it? Amazingly enough, the New York Times is worried about a fascistic threat to free speech from, wait for it, you know where it's going, Donald Trump, of course. A.G. Sulzberger, the publisher of the New York Times, has a piece in the Washington Post, because democracy dies in darkness and all the rest, decrying the possibility that Donald Trump is going to crack down on the press. Now, never mind that the Biden administration has been significantly worse to the press than the Trump administration ever was. Trump said mean things about the press, but he talked with them regularly. The Biden administration doesn't even bother to actually do interviews with the press. They just send out KJP to lie all the time. Or Jen Psaki before her. I mean, Joe Biden doesn't do interviews. Joe Biden doesn't do anything. Kamala Harris doesn't do interviews. She doesn't do anything. The mistreatment of the media under Joe Biden has been extraordinary. Members of the media acknowledge it. But of course, the big threat is going to be Donald Trump. He's going to threaten the First Amendment, just like they have supposedly in Hungary, India, and Brazil. Notice, by the way, that there's never any talk about the crackdown on the press under Lula da Silva in Brazil. It's all about Jair Bolsonaro. Because it turns out that so many of our journalists are just left-wing activists. That's all they are. And so they can never call out actual threats to the free press as long as those threats come from the left. They'll only call out phantom threats to the free press from the right. And again, they're ramping up all the talk about disinformation because the idea is going to be that if Donald Trump wins, it was the Russians again. So there's been a lot of focus, for example, on this Russian operation to promote propaganda via a company called Tenet Media, which was founded by Lauren Chen and her husband, Liam Donovan. According to Semaphore.com, Chen and her husband are the co-founders of Tenet Media, a previously obscure media company that paid eye-popping sums to right-wing influencers to produce videos echoing Russian propaganda and other right-wing talking points, according to the indictment. Now, the goal of a lot of these stories is to suggest that, for example, Tim Pool or Benny Johnson produced pro-Russian propaganda because they were being paid by the Russians, that wasn't their actual point of view, that they were sort of bought and paid for. So Lauren Chen has now been fired by the Blaze, which of course is an appropriate remedy. And the reality is that Lauren had been promulgating a lot of pretty ugly stuff for a very long period of time. And as an unfortunate fact of the modern media environment, there are some people on the right who are grifting their way forward. The fact that Lauren Chen spent an extraordinary amount of time basically decrying all of her political opponents is bought and paid for by foreign interests. And then it turns out that she was kind of bought and paid for by foreign interests. There's a great level of irony there. She has been let go by the Blaze. It's a bad story about right-wing media, but the reality is there's some goodies in right-wing media, like Matt Walsh. Matt's done it again with his new film, Am I Racist? It hits theaters September 13th, but you can watch it early and for free through our partnership with Young America's Foundation. I love working with YAF. We've been partnering with them since 2013 to speak where needed most in America. College campuses. We've been to some of the worst leftist havens, from Berkeley to University of Wisconsin-Madison to the University of Michigan. We're partnering with them again to give our listeners and students across the country early access to the film for free. Head on over to yaf.org/air. That's yaf.org/AIR to find a theater near you and get your ticket today. And the bottom line is that, however, Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, there's counter evidence to the idea that they were knowingly paid by the Russian government. And the sort of implication by the media that they were, it's pretty ugly. And again, I disagree with them when it comes to Russia-Ukraine, in large measure. I've been an advocate of continuing funding to Ukraine sufficient to prevent a full-scale Russian victory in that war while also seeking an off-ramp. Frankly, I also think that Ukraine has every right and ability to incur into Russian territory as an offset to the territory that Russia has taken from Ukraine, because that is going to forward their cause in future negotiation. So I disagree with them. That doesn't change the question of whether they were paid for their perspective by Russia. That is a different thing. And the implication always is that somehow the pro-Trump forces are being bought and paid for by someone. And there's no evidence to suggest that that is, in fact, the case. In fact, joining us on the line right now is Tim Pool. He is host of Timcast IRL, a CEO of Timcast.com, and host of the Culture War podcast. You can see that over at his YouTube channel. Tim, thanks for joining the show. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
So there are two big stories that you are currently involved in. One wasn't enough for you. One of them is, of course, the very widely covered story about a DOJ indictment involving apparently Tenet Media. Tenet Media, according to the allegations, was being paid effectively by a Russian front. And when I say the company was, what I really mean is the founders of the company apparently were, if the allegations in the indictment are true. And all the media ran with was that because you are a host whose show is posted at Tenet Media, that this must have implicated you or Dave Rubin or Benny Johnson. Why don't you give us sort of the rundown of what's going on here?
Yeah, the simple version is the Culture War podcast existed well before Tenet Media or any licensing agreement. We had the show, so I've got multiple YouTube channels. One is youtube.com/Timcast. That was my original channel where I used to host a 4 p.m., half an hour podcast. We switched formats because I have a couple channels. One was redundant. I have another one that's basically the same thing. They're kind of redundant. So we turned this one into a Friday morning live show about cultural issues. So it's politics doesn't, come in relatively often, but, we did one on dating. We did an episode on simulation theory versus Christianity and religion. So it's not an overtly political show. That show was licensed for principal broadcast, non-exclusive to Tenet Media. That's it. The show exists still to this day, and it will be at youtube.com/Timcast on Fridays. So with this story, we're hearing that these allegations, it's kind of crazy. I mean, Lauren Chen, I guess she's been fired from the Blaze. I don't know a lot about what's going on. In fact, I think I only talked to her a couple times this year. For me, we had an existing show that a new show we had launched, had been up for a few months. We hosted people like Vivek Ramaswamy on it. And we were preparing to engage in sponsorships. And, they were getting hundreds of thousands of views per episode. And we decided to license it out because Lauren contacted us and was saying, we'd love to license something from you. And I said, well, we don't need to do that. We're an independent company. We have our own members and sponsorships. And then it took quite a while. But long story short, we agreed to a non-exclusive broadcast license, which meant that we own the show. The show is owned by the Culture War Company, which is its own company. We own distribution rights. We own audio distribution rights, everything about it. They just effectively paid for a license, which would have it appear on their YouTube channel Friday mornings at 10 a.m. And with that, they got to use my likeness and things like that. And so now with these allegations, I don't know what's going on there, but I don't know if you want to ask any questions so we can elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only questions that, given the media coverage, I think the question that people in the media are pushing, at least, is the idea that there must have been some sort of outside external Russian control of your show. Maybe you want to address how you do the editorial at your show. Was Lauren ever talking to you about the editorial content of the show or anything like that?
Nope. So I barely even talked to Lauren. And it's kind of crazy. I've known her for a long time. So when she said that she was launching a company, she had investors, I'm like, okay. I mean, I hear that 50 times a year. And in the podcast space, we just heard that I think Travis Kelce is getting a $100 million contract. So these numbers that's where they're at. I think people don't realize how big the podcasting space is and the revenue that you generate from sponsorships and memberships. So it seemed kind of, I don't know, mundane to a certain extent. A lot of people think these numbers are huge. But yeah, so I don't know. Ask me again. I'm losing my train of thought.
Yeah, no. I mean, the only question was basically whether you were in control of the editorial, and it sounds like you were. So.
I mean, the Culture War show is a conversation show on various topics. The subject matter of the show editorially there's no thought into it. We had been talking about hosting a show on religious debate and simulation theory and AI. So I talked to my booking agent and said, can we find a guy who talks about AI and simulation and then do a 2-hour conversation? That's the gist of it. That's how the show was produced. The first episode that actually appeared on Tenet was about skateboarding. Quite literally, we had a professional skateboard filmer, an amateur and a professional skateboarder, and we talked about skateboarding because I'm a skateboarder and that's what we do. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy to hear that they're saying the media's jumped the gun completely on what the story is. The DOJ indictment literally says that commentators were deceived, that there was a rather sophisticated plan to manipulate the commentators of the platform so that they wouldn't know what was going on. And I can say on my end, everything that happens here goes through our legal team, and we have multiple lawyers. So when someone reaches out to me and says, "Hey, we want to do a potential," like we have sponsorships, and I don't know who these companies are, and we're a company with like 40 employees, and so when someone reaches out to us, I say, "Great, cool, someone handle it and talk to the lawyers." The lawyers come back, do their due diligence, and then we say, "Sure," or whatever. And so the crazy thing is, this was so ancillary to anything we do. I do my morning show from 10 to noon now. At the time, it wasn't live, but now it's live. And then we do Timcast IRL from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. And so I don't really think much at all about where the show is streaming or distribution. For all I knew, this was, Lauren Chen. She works at The Blaze. She wanted to start a company. She found investors. That was seemingly the gist of it. We only ever took money from an American corporation. The amount of money that we were offered for the show was around market value for offers we had already received. And so it was just like, cool, I know Lauren, sure, whatever. And then you got Benny and Dave and Matt Christensen and Taylor Hansen, who I know them all. And I'm like, yeah, this seems fine, whatever. And the crazy thing is, assuming all this stuff is true, I'm like, man, this sucks. We didn't need the deal. The deal didn't do anything for us. It was just, sure, I guess. And the bummer is, now with the way things are going, we could have just run the Culture War on my channel with 1.3 million subscribers as it is. And just made money on our own through sponsorship as we already did. So it's frustrating to get entangled in whatever it is she's accused of being involved in.
Yeah, and it must be frustrating also. I mean, listen, you and I disagree, I think, on some of the elements around the Ukraine war, but the idea that's been put forth by the media is that somehow you are being paid directly by Vladimir Putin in order to express those views, and that therefore anybody who disagrees with sort of the Democratic take or even the sort of moderate Republican take on this must be paid by Russia. That, of course, is an absurdity, and I think it is wrapped into a broader narrative that seems to be ramping up just in time for the election, which is that Russia's going to interfere in the election on behalf of Donald Trump, and that everybody on the right is in some form or fashion working for the Russians, which is why they're for Donald Trump in the first place.
Yeah, here we go again. I mean, my views probably align more with the Libertarian Party. That's it. Russia sucks. I'm not a fan of Russia. I think Vladimir Putin is a dictator who's used unethical and dictatorial means to maintain power for decades. And I've long said that. My principal point is, my opposition to the war is that we are spending hundreds of billions of dollars at a time when we're dealing with infrastructure problems, we're dealing with border problems. And now with the clip they're circulating right now is my exasperation and outrage to hear that with U.S. resources, not weapons, but with training and things of this matter, Ukraine's invaded Russian territory, pushing us to the brink of large-scale international conflict, which terrifies me. And so that pisses me off. That being said, Russia should never have invaded Ukraine. Russia was wrong to do it. They lost the soft power battle, and they're resorting desperate tactics to do it. And then we find ourselves entrenched in some conflict because of Ukraine. They're posting these things about, I remember I went out with you guys. I had supported Ron DeSantis early on, 21 or in 2022, until things started to shift. I felt like Ron wasn't going to be able to win. Now they're acting like that was all of a sudden I got paid to change my opinions. And this is the unfortunate thing. The ultimate smear is the revenue that we were paid through the licensing deal was inconsequential to my lifestyle, to the bottom line of the company. And we've actually never done anything with it. I would say the overwhelming majority of the money is just not gone anywhere. And then, we have people tweeting at me like, give the money back or whatever it is. Like, dude, let me put it this way. We're talking to our legal team. I can say that I just announced I've been contacted by the FBI as a victim of a potential victim in a crime. They have stated that I may have information relevant to their ongoing investigation and requested a voluntary interview. So, engaging with counsel, we are going to provide assistance in whatever way we can, and that's about it. I mean, it's. They say it's like an arm's length deal. That's what it's always referred to. And I'm like, man, I don't even know what that means. I know that we had a show that already existed that talks about video games, dating, culture, some political issues. We had an Israel-Palestine debate, and we licensed it for publication, non-exclusive. That's the crazy thing. It's it was not even an exclusive show. It's non-exclusive. We published it other places. We own the rights for all of it. And so now we get entrenched in whatever this is. And I'm just like, nah, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I don't know what it is Lauren Chen was doing. I'm quite perturbed by the allegations. I don't know what'll turn out to be true, but I'm pissed.
So that's one story involving you. The other one is that you are suing Kamala Harris. The Kamala Harris campaign put out a tweet it really is an absurd tweet. I mean, they put out a tweet effectively saying that you were calling for violence, or that you were saying that Trump should actually arrest people or execute people based on whim. If you watch the clip that's posted, that is 100% not what you are saying. In fact, what you are saying is that if there are people who are guilty of crimes, then Trump should use his DOJ to go after those people. And then Laura Loomer, who was on your show, suggested that maybe if they're guilty of treason, they should be executed. But even with that statement, the presumption would be that there would be some sort of judicial process. And I think that it's a pretty large stretch of the imagination to think that we're going to get to the point where people are tried for treason in the United States and then executed. It's been a little while since we've done that in any case. But that's not what the Kamala Harris tweet said. The Kamala Harris tweet suggested that you believe that basically Donald Trump should be given dictatorial power to kill his enemies.
Right. So it hit a bunch of points. It said I was a Trump operative, which I don't know. I'm implying I'm paid. It's not true. It said their Project 2025 plan. I have nothing to do with Project 2025. And then it said that we were calling for Trump to have unchecked legal authority to jail and execute anyone who won't support him when he wins, or if he wins or whatever, which is crazy because I oppose the death penalty. I am adamantly opposed to the death penalty. And the actual clip, they cut it short. But the actual full context was the Federalist's Sean Davis had made a statement that day or the day prior that he wants to see a list of Democrats who are going to be criminally charged when Trump gets elected. My point was kind of walking that back. Like, we don't want to come out and just say, go arrest Democrats. The point in the full context of the conversation is, are there some, like, I'll put it this way. When he says he wants a list of Democrats, my point is this. Are there some Democrats who should be criminally charged? Yes, because they committed crimes. I am not saying Democrat voters. I am not saying all Democrats. I am saying certainly there are people aligned with the Democratic Party. I believe that there was that lawyer who was criminally charged over the Carter Page incident. These people exist. Donald Trump will need an AG, a deputy attorney general, and head of the FBI who are going to launch investigations, get real evidence of these crimes, have warrants. There will be trials in front of the world to prove the crimes they committed, and then they can be sentenced. My point is it's not a point of origin for me to say, hey, Trump, go arrest these people. Not at all. My point was, hey, you're calling for the arrest, but we have to make sure if that's the case, these people are actually guilty of crimes. They've actually faced trial. And then to go on to claim that I would call for the execution of people who wouldn't support Trump, I don't believe there is anything more extreme you could accuse a person of doing, saying, or of views they held. That is the epitome of extreme statement. To claim that I was advocating for what is tantamount to genocide is an extreme lie, and that's why we're taking immediate action. And I engaged my legal team and said we're going forward with it. So we're in the preparation phase, but we're moving quickly.
So, Tim, what remedy are you seeking from the Kamala Harris campaign? I assume, obviously, a takedown of the tweet, but what else?
Well, we're not there yet. My lawyers are drafting the argument, so I think it's premature for me to say all of exactly what the remedy is going to be, and I have to confer with my lawyers on that. But I don't know how much I can say, considering my lawyers are currently working on it. But we are going over paperwork, and once we have something finalized and it's filed, then everyone will know exactly what we're saying beyond the, hey, you can't accuse someone of these things. This is crazy.
Well, Tim, really appreciate taking the time. I know that things are very, very busy over there. And, honestly, the media coverage of all of this is quite absurd when it comes to you. So, I feel for you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty, guys, coming up, we'll be getting into Hunter Biden's surprise guilty plea. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey. If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of
white
folks,
white
trash, white supremacy, white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gon' say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.